So welcome everyone to the Vibe Tribe. We are excited to have Andy Hansen here today. I know Andy through Healy. And Andy, where are you located? You're in?
I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Okay. And he is an actualization consultant and uses human design, astrology, and the gene keys and psychology. Correct?
All sorts of stuff, yeah.
To help all of us understand what the hell we're supposed to do in this world with all of our gifts and genius and how to work with people and in business and in our relationships and all that good stuff. And it all starts with like the why. And there's just no better time than right now to figure out our why because of everything that's going on in the world right now. So we're gonna start with him in like 10 minutes, but I just wanted to give everyone an opportunity to say hello. I know we've got some new people on here. John, I see you're new. Hello. And
hello, how you guys doing?
Good. Jacqueline and we've got all kinds of new people. So yeah, shout out if you want to say hello. Oh, we've got a baby. Babies are fun.
I just want to say I just became a Healy member like a week ago. So thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. So I like it so far. It's pretty cool. It is pretty cool.
Welcome.
Devin introduced me to Healy.
John's my boyfriend, guys.
Okay.
Now we understand.
So
it's nice to have another guy around.
She said Andy's a cool dude. He's got a lot of good things to say. So I thought that's awesome.
Oh, thanks, Devin.
Yeah,
very cool. And did I see the one and only Mark Bentley? Yeah. I did. He's not on video. Let's see if we can get him on
there
video.
He is.
Oh,
hi Mark.
Good to see you all. Tuning in from the hills here in the morning.
Guys, Mark is in Australia in tomorrow. So he is in April Fools. Mark is in April Fools now.
That's right.
Yeah. Thanks for being with us, Mark. Okay. Yeah, he is from the future.
Good for you, Vera.
He's definitely from the future if you get to know him for sure. Okay, does anybody have any, since we only have a couple of minutes, any extraordinary like wins that they want to share? Anything that's been going on personally in your business? You know, I always have one. Anna, you have a good one?
Yeah.
I mean, March was liftoff for me. So usually I have like all these testimonials to Healy and, you know, my experiences with it. But my latest and greatest experience is expansion. And actually, I think as of today, I've sold 11 Healys. So I went from nothing to 11. So yeah.
And just real quickly, because I know we're going to touch on this a little bit with Andy, but like you have been with Healy for a year and wanted to know all of the science and you implemented it in yourself first in crazy ways. Andy, I was telling you earlier about somebody who used microcurrent on their eyes to help with scar tissue. That was this girl. She's very sciencey. And but you had some problems, or not problems, some blocks around selling Healy because of the ick factor.
Yeah.
So what did you do?
I listened to you. You said, oh, that's what your fear is? Okay, well then go live and talk about your fear. And I was like, really? And you said yes. And so I did it. And I shook the whole time. I was so afraid. I don't know why. There was just something deeper, subconscious layers that were just coming up. And I decided that this month was the rip the Band-Aid off month. And it was just going to go straight into fear. wherever I'm holding fear or would typically say no, or, you know, whatever was coming up as like this block, I wanted none of it anymore. So I just jumped to the other side, got through it, went through the painful experience of it. But once I went live and faced some pretty deep fears for myself and talked about all of this, I could feel my body actually calming down. My nervous system was actually like mellowing out as I expressed myself. And then I was just completely calm by the end of the live. And I had 2 leads right then and there just from sharing my ick factor around sales and starting to talk about Healy. And so then I was like, okay, that wasn't as bad. And so I just, you know, decided that that was something that the more I do, the easier it's going to get. And so I've gotten to a point that I actually feel pretty comfortable. But that was like 2 weeks into March that I finally ripped that Band-Aid off. So it really has only been like 2 weeks with all of this madness.
Yep. And she's just like, there's people from all over the world who are buying Heelys from Anna and she doesn't even know who they are. So it's pretty
Norway
amazing.
on the map.
We have Norway on the map.
As of this week, yeah.
Yeah. And it's really exciting because Anna's actually someone who will show them how to use the Healy in ways that, you know, some of us others might not be able to. She's just super sciencey. So I'm very excited for all those people. So well done. I will share, unless anyone else has one, I will share a testimonial real quick that happened today, actually. Does anyone have anyone? I'll wait 2 seconds. Okay, now. So the girl, I was at the, wait, did someone say something? No, okay. Today I was at the chiropractor's office and our front desk girl has a cold. It's funny that people actually leave their house now when they're sick. It's like, whoa, did we not learn anything? But anyway, she was sick. She had a mask on, but she was sick. And I brought in my extra Heelys. So I ran the chilling program. And after I ran the chilling program, she felt better. But then I waited like an hour and then I ran the immune system on her. And she was like, I don't know what happened, but during that program, I started to sweat and like, I felt like I had a fever and then it broke. And that's happened to me with the immune system with other people too, when they've had a fever. And she was like, afterwards, like her cold was like 90% gone. It was insane to like see it happen that fast. And since she's the front desk girl at the place that I work, now she will be able to talk about Healy in a much like more personal way because she actually had an experience. So that was pretty cool. Okay. So without further ado, Andy, I kind of introduced you before, but a bunch of new people hopped on. So yeah, a lot of people hopped on. So Andy is an actualization consultant, and he is going to tell us exactly what that means. All I know is that he is a very smart guy who can tell all of us a lot about ourselves, having to do with human design, the gene keys, astrology. And you're also like a yoga teacher out there too, right? Right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm just going to hand it over to you and let you tell us about the why process. I'm excited.
Oh man. All right, cool. Well, thank you all for letting me share. So yeah, I'm an actualization consultant. What is that? Well, it's kind of like a life coach, but I don't like the word coach. I just never really, that word just was always like, just didn't, not what I wanted to call myself. And I was working with personal consultant for a while, and the word actualization, just like, I just feel it in my body when I say the word actualization. And when I started like actualization consultant, it just like, I noticed myself kind of changing in the moment when I was saying that. And so that was one of the reasons that I settled on that. I'm deeply influenced by the work of Abraham Maslow. For people who are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he's probably the most influential writer on the topic of self-actualization that I'm personally familiar with. And so that was kind of where I came to that. I chose actualization because it's relatively secular. It's not enlightenment, it's not, development. It kind of meets this middle ground. You might be able to hear my son in the background right now, by the way, too,
Aw.
talking. So yeah, he's having an evening here. But he's a very sensitive little boy, I'll say that. And so, yeah, my work, I guess, to start with why I do what I do. I do what I do to empower others to live with passion and purpose so that together we can serve what is sacred. And I think that there's a lot there that sentence was about 6 months of shadow work. So just to that took a long time to get there, and a lot of fine tuning and a lot of nitpicking to get there, and a lot of testing it out and asking other people what they think of it. What do you feel in your body when I say this, and that kind of stuff, just to kind of get that kind of feedback there, and really, how do I do this, right? Like, how do I empower people? I empower people by seeing them clearly, and by really that process of seeing and allowing other people to see themselves more clearly is really at the heart of what I do. And so to share a story with you, I, for most of my life, didn't see myself. I felt unseen. I didn't feel recognized. And I didn't feel like myself. And so, generally speaking, a why is rooted in some kind of a core value, a belief that you have about the world. And so being seen is a core value of mine. And you can usually trace those back to stories, pretty much always from childhood, in my experience. And so not feeling seen is a really strong theme for me in my life. And so this ability to see people is something that I really hold sacred. And so I just kind of wanted to take a pause here really quick and ask a question that we can kind of consider here. And Ashley, maybe you can actually answer it, and maybe other people can just kind of contemplate it, maybe write something down or whatever it is. But just really quickly, like, what is your intention with Healy? Like, what are you trying to do with Healy? What kind
Raise
of
the
cause?
vibration. Raise the vibration, heal the world.
Raise the vibration, heal the world. Beautiful. Why is that important to you?
Oh, damn, Andy. I think that I've always seen people also as a projector. I also see, Anna, you just said this the other day, I see people's big picture. And I think that they can't get there until they raise their vibration. And so when I say heal the world, it's not just like of disease and sickness, it's of like getting people to their fullest potential. Like, I have a deep, like, I can feel myself getting like passion and like the heat rising in me when I'm talking about people's potential. So I guess it's just I don't know. I want to be surrounded by people who want to reach their fullest potential. And so, yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So actualizing potential is why raising the vibration is important to you. Is what I'm hearing you say right there. And I kind of ad-libbed a little bit there to help it suit me. And I'll ask this other question too. What is sacred to you?
Community.
Community.
Yeah. Deep connections that I did not have until this Vibe Tribe. I can honestly say I did not have until. So that is also like a why for me is when I manifested 2 years ago, when I created a manifestation list, I first created, like, I wanted a community, awakened soul sisters, men too, but mostly women. And so that is also sacred to me.
Beautiful. Yeah, I can really relate to that as well. I found myself a lot in community, and there's something really important and special, right? Like about community. So to give some context here a little bit, the why. There's this idea, and it's been popularized by a motivational speaker and author named Simon Sinek, who's been a huge influence. Has anyone heard of Simon Sinek? Hands raised.
Only because of you.
Only because of me. All right, cool. Well, so that video I shared with you, Ashley, is really useful. He's written a few different books. His most influential one for me was called Start With Why. So there's this idea that most people know what they do. Generally speaking, what do I do? Well, I do, astrology, human design. I see people one-on-one. I do classes. I teach. Okay, well, most people also know how they do what they do. So what does Healy do? Let's just kind of think about it that way. What does Healy do?
Balances your cells so your body can heal itself.
How does it do that?
By reading where you're imbalanced and then delivering the exact frequencies that your body needs to balance itself. So yeah, in business terms, this might be what we might call like a differentiating value proposition, right? Like kind of like what makes us, different from our competition, right? So like the classic example is Apple and Microsoft. Does Microsoft have the same type of brand loyalty that Apple does? No.
And why do you think that is?
The vision of the founder, maybe, and the company.
I think that's accurate. I think Apple has a clear why. People buy why Apple does what they do. They don't buy what they do. Apple is here to provide a challenge to the status quo. That is Apple's why, above all else. They are here to challenge the status quo. They've been doing that forever, and they're not afraid to turn the market on its head in service to that. There's a lot of really interesting stories about this, so not a lot of people know why they do what they do. And I probably would have thought 6 months ago that I knew exactly why I did what I did. I would have been, yep, this is why, because we're doing this thing. And, I could spout off some human design prophecies about how the world's about to get, turned upside down, or I could think about whatever. I had no idea why I was doing what I was doing, full honesty. And because there's so many unconscious motivations, right? Like it's hard to really know what they all are. Is anyone here familiar with the shadow at all? I know Mark, Devin are probably relatively familiar with
Julie's
the shadow.
like, uh-huh.
Okay,
Brent's like,
yeah.
uh-huh. Yeah.
So
we know
this
about
this unconscious, right? Many people are not aware of their unconscious motivations, right? So like, for example, I had a motivation for a long time to choose. I wanted to have a choice, and that was really important to me. all the time, but I had no idea that that motivation was driving me. I had no idea that, for instance, personal agency was a foundational core value of mine. I had no idea. I could not have told you that. I would not have been able to tell you what my core values are, really at all. Without, I mean, it would have been empty. It wouldn't have had real substance to it. And so I've built and adapted a couple of different processes to work with this why. Because what being clear on your why allows you to do is not chase after shiny objects so much. You are grounded, you are rooted, and then from that space of why, you can play with things like existential flexibility. Like maybe I want to try something new because it aligns with my why. If it doesn't align with my why, that's an easy answer for me. So these core values can then become guiding principles, right? I'm not like, there's nothing earth shattering here, but it's really, really useful. And I want to be clear about that because like shadow work is as practical a thing as there is. And so that's really, I've developed two basic processes. One that is more for the mystically inclined, that includes Reiki, shadow work, astrology, human design, the gene keys, and there's a sequence that these kind of things open up within, and also using intention, ritual, these kinds of things, right, to kind of find out and embody what is sacred to you and what is it that you serve, what is it that you are here to do, what is it that nobody else can do because of your unique experiences and your unique perspective on the world. Nobody else sees the world that you do. Nobody. And so there is a unique set of problems that only each of you can solve. And this is where the why comes in such a profound way, because it gives more than a sense of purpose. It gives a mission in many ways. And so Simon, and the way that he has laid out the why process is really taking stock of your high points and your low points in your life. So just kind of charting a map. Okay, what are my highs? What are my lows? With the basic assumption that our core values are forged in our moments of outrageous pain and our moments of outrageous love. It is those key moments in our lives where it's all clear. There is something that is happening there that we remember and that leaves an energetic impression on us. And so, you know, in the way that Simon lays out the process is a little bit more benign, I'll say. He's not quite in the stickiness of the shadows like I do. And so that's really, I think, what I've offered and kind of how I've kind of mutated what he has to offer here is dissecting those moments.
Can you explain, can I ask you a question,
Please,
Andy?
yeah.
Can you explain what a shadow is? I mean, we hear this buzzword a lot, shadow
Sure.
work, but like, what's
Yeah.
a shadow?
Yeah, absolutely. So the shadow is any disowned part of ourself, any exiled part of ourself, anything that is unconsciously pulling the strings on our lives. The shadow is always there. And unless you're consciously working with the shadow, it's basically just running into you all the time. There's no other way to say it. It's there, and we all have one. We can think of it as some of our darker aspects, right? those thoughts that come up that are like, whoa, I don't want to do that. That's not me. And so we like, we got to get that away, right? That's a good example of a shadow. You can see the shadow when we become triggered. That is the best way. When you think of someone who really bothers you, there's usually a reason for that. And it's because that they're touching on something that you have disowned within yourself. They're doing something that you are not comfortable with because you're not comfortable with that part of yourself. So like you might say, oh, that person is like so egotistical. They're just so full of themselves. They just want the spotlight. And what you're saying is that there's a piece of yourself that wants the spotlight that you're not comfortable with. And so there's some,
okay.
So this is not for the faint of heart, right? This is not, I don't do the, I'm not in it for the surface, right? This is about lasting. So the why is really a chronicle of your past. It's not a vision for the future. And so it's usually rooted in a belief about something that you see in the world. So if you start thinking about like, what is it that I believe about the world? That like, you know, if you start thinking about like, what does the world need more of, right? Like, what do we all need to do right now? What does the world need to do? Those are the kind of breadcrumbs that will guide you back to pieces of your why in some way. And there's a certain structure to this too. There's a way to word it. There's a way to work with it. And so this idea is that you start with the why in the center, then you go out to how, and then your what just happens. Like you don't even think about it at that point. You're not even thinking about what you do. And I want to be kind of frank about something here too. So I got onboarded up to Healy back in December 2020, I'm pretty sure it was, yeah. And you know, I was excited about it, and it was a good time because I wasn't really working that much. And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go, let's sell this thing. And like, it just never clicked for me. I just was never able to really crack the code, get there. And there could be a million reasons for that. One of the things that I notice about Healy specifically is that there's so much that it does, right? Like when people are like, what does this thing do? It's like, well, I can tell you what I use it for. And that's probably all I have energy for in this conversation, to be honest. But having a clear why around something like Healy, man, that conversation is going to be right to the point, because this gets down to biology here too. The why speaks to the reptilian brainstem. This is about survival. This is about like what is the most important thing to you in the world. So you move out from the why, works with like the reptilian brainstem, which is like, I mean, fear is like the biggest. It's like all like, you know, like a survival mechanism. I'm sure there's someone here that's more apt to describe neurochemistry than I am, or neurobiology. From there, we come out to the how. So you can imagine like at the center of the circle is why. Outside of that is how. The how speaks to the limbic system, our emotions, our feelings, images, language, all happens. I'm not sure if language does actually, but there's this completely different system in our brain that we speak to. And what is the neocortex, the thinking mind, rational thinking mind, right? That just goes, that is always categorizing information, recognizing patterns, and trying to see how it all fits together, right? So if you're constantly talking about what this thing does, you're not really reaching the decision-making part of the brain, because the decisions are made in those two inner circles, the limbic system and the reptilian brainstem. There's not really a lot of decision-making being made in the neocortex. So like one of the things you might get from people is like, it's just not feeling right. It's not feeling right for me to do this, you know, it's not, and that's because like it's not really penetrating to the correct neurobiology to be able to make these decisions. And so if you're constantly talking about what this thing does, people are just, okay, yeah, sure. Like let's give a good example here. So everyone remembers, hopefully everyone remembers when Microsoft came out with their Zune. Does everyone remember Zune? It was basically a competitor to Apple's iPod. And it had like, it was light years ahead as far as tech goes. It was an exponentially superior product, but no one cared. Nobody bought it. Nobody cared what they did. They were like, Microsoft, you're a computer company. Why are you trying to sell me an MP3 player? But Apple does it all the time, right? Because they're clear on their why, and they speak to the correct part of the brain. And it's a completely different ballgame. And so when we're doing it this way, everything changes. The conversations change. They take on a more embodied sense. You're speaking to people in a way that they can actually feel, as opposed to just kind of think about and wrap their head around. And so when I say to you, you know, my work is to empower others to live with passion and purpose so that we can serve what is sacred to us. You know, that's a more embodied thing than saying, oh yeah, I do astrology, human design, I'm pretty good at it. You know, like I do readings, like you can check out my blog. Like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like some people might get that. And like, these are the kinds of people who are lining up at Apple stores to get the first iPhone when it comes out, right? Early adopters, that's a completely different set of people than what we're seeing now on the growth curve of Healy is most of the early adopters are probably on board by now. And so now we need people who can actually kind of go deeper and speak to a different part of what's happening here. And so that's really, I think, where being clear on your why. I mean, nobody cares what you do, they care why you do it. Nobody buys what you do, they buy why you do it. And really what I'm proposing is that your wound is your why. Your mess is your message. And going into these highs and lows, these moments of outrageous pain, moments of outrageous love, that's where the answers are. That's where the magic is. That's where the power is. And that's where, you know, if you want to really build something here, that's the foundation. And if your foundations are shaky, no one cares about how nice the curtains are in your house if it's built on, you know, shaky foundation. That's just not like, it's oh great, you know. And you could talk about all the features in the world, right? Oh yeah, it does this thing, and the Healy coil is great too. You could talk about all the features in the world that you want to, right? But like it's not gonna matter unless you're really speaking to that. You really have to penetrate, and that's what this kind of thing can offer. You gonna say something, Ashley?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you some questions.
Yeah,
So,
please.
when you get together with someone, they're coming to you because they want to know their why. Is that, and then you use astrology and human design and all of your other tools to help people understand themselves better. Is that correct?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different kind of processes I work with. One of them is like, so I don't do that as much when I'm working on like a business level. That's like more individual, someone trying to like, you know, just kind of find themselves a little bit, you know, and make sense of their purpose. And what I'm doing there is really arming them with resources to begin to tell a new story, right? Like, because a lot of people want to change and make these kind of big things happen in their lives, you know, but they don't have the resources for that. And so I see, you know, human design, astrology, gene keys, and, you know, kind of crafting intention around that as like you're arming yourself, you're filling up your pack for your journey up the mountain. Like that's really how I look at that stuff. When I'm working with businesses, I focus on the why, specifically on the why process. And so there's these kind of two different lanes here, because like businesses, in my experience, aren't as interested in hearing about astrology.
This business does.
And I appreciate that. And so that's one thing that I'm eager to offer, I guess, here. And so what I would say is that's usually about a 10-session process, generally speaking. And I'd like to, and the thing is, like, people want to rush this, right? I want to get my why next week. I'll book you 10 back-to-back days, and I'll have it by next Tuesday. It's like this stuff takes time. This stuff, because like if you think about it like a scientific experiment, right? You need sample size. You need you need to see this playing out in the substrate of your life. And so in order to really have this last and be enduring, you need to see enough of your life happen with this. And then, so like, I recommend it to be about a 6-month process. 3 months is what ends up happening most of the time, because it's just, a little bit different. But like, I think the more time that you can take with it, like the more embodied you're going to be in this, and it's worth taking the time. To share a quick story here, I've been doing this work now for 3 years or so, and it never really became really clear to me until probably last year. And I was building my website, right? I'm putting out blogs, I have an email list going, I'm seeing clients, sort of, doing the things, right? It all looks right. And I had a friend reach out and be like, hey, like this it doesn't seem like you're clear on like why you're doing this. And like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me what's happening here. And I had all this momentum, right? I was like, no, I'm moving forward with this, right? When he said that, I'm like, well, hey, fuck you, buddy. It's my instant reaction. But then once I let that move through my system and got that out of there, and was honest with myself, I was like, he's right. And I took my website down. I was like, nope, I need to stop everything I'm doing and do this work. You can think of it like the chakra system too, right? Like if you're really just all up here in like your throat, expression, creativity, all that stuff, but you haven't tended to your root chakra, there's an instability there inherently. And so there's all sorts of different frameworks you can work with to make this make sense, right? And I think that's one of the things is like, no matter how much you think that you don't have time for something like this, I would argue that you don't have enough time not to do this.
Okay. Is there a way to just for the people on the call to get like a taste of like what a session with you would look like?
Yeah, great question. So generally speaking, my website has some good stuff on there. I've got some blog posts up that kind of make it clear some of the things that I do. If you're looking for a why process oriented thing, what I would do is, if you're into some of these other systems like that, we would probably do is, first we're going to meet and just kind of talk about, right, are we a good fit, right? Like, am I speaking your language? Are you going to be receptive to what I have to offer here? I always offer a free consult right off the bat, just to kind of get to know each other. Let's just get clear on a couple of things here. It's important for me to know things like your human design profile, because then I can know how to ask you questions, how to ask for decisions out of you. So for example, Ashley, you are an emotional authority being, and so I would ask you to sleep on this. I'd be like, okay, yeah, here's some information. maybe check in with me in a couple of days and we'll see how this kind of feels with you right now. But we have, a manifesting generator. I might be like, what's your gut say? Let's go. And give me the answer right now. And so like knowing these kinds of things can help me see more clearly. And like, really what I'm looking for is like, when I see this like real you come out in these sessions, right? That's when I'm like, hey, who is that? How do we get more of that? Well, where did that come from? That's really what it comes down to. And so the first thing I do is a shadow work session, because it's like, we gotta clear things out. Everyone has something we can work through around that. And that shadow work session, usually we talk about something a little bit, like there might be a memory, there might be a person, there might be something like that we kind of really try to get as much objective information about out there. And then we'll lead an experience where I guide through a meditation using Reiki, and some techniques that involve systems like internal family systems, and then basically to kind of look at the experience that happened. So like there might have been a time in your life where there was like you were in the room when your parents were yelling at each other, right? And it was just like really like left this energetic imprint on you. We might just go back and be like, oh, okay, let's look at this. Let's just like think about this, and let's not be afraid of this. And then we'll do some role playing after that. So that's usually how the shadow work goes. And then, is anyone here familiar with nonviolent communication and the way that works at all? That's another kind of piece of it for me. But we basically look through and we find, okay, well, how are you feeling in this moment? And if it's a moment of pain, what were the unmet needs that were there? Like so I have a list of like, universal human needs that we'll just go through, and people be like, oh yeah, I really just, I needed nurturing in that moment, right? Or I needed communication, I needed clarity, there's all sorts of things. And then what we see then is that those unmet needs form the foundation of our core values. And so that's really what happens there. And once we do some shadow work, then we can talk about astrology, human design. We can like, okay, yeah, now let's kind of, until we figure out what's happened in your past, I'm not even about to talk about what the stars are saying. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And then going into the gene keys after that, setting you up to work with the gene keys actually and do the gene keys work. Is a big piece of what I do. I'm not just going to give you a reading there, because it is kind of a body of work, and that's where the magic happens there. I can offer some insights around that. And then yeah,
I was going to ask Alyssa. So Alyssa wants to know, and I'm sure other people want to know. Yep.
Oh boy. The gene keys, knowing that I have Mark here listening is it's going to be great for me right now. The gene keys is a system of 64 archetypes based upon the Chinese I Ching, built upon the human design system that organizes certain upgrades in your life into certain sequences that you go through. So for example, there's an activation sequence where you are here to go through and learn what your 4 prime gifts are, see them playing out in your life, be able to locate them in your body and see them in your story. Develop an intimate relationship with your shadows is really something that there's nothing else like the gene keys that kind of does this. Working with it has been really empowering for me. I've developed a sense of just incredible knowing out of the gene keys of like what I'm here to do. And like, to give an example, I came to the gene keys in summer 2020. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and it was at the height of the George Floyd riots. So our city was burning. It was burning to the ground. And I was at a loss at what to do, how to show up during this time. And I came to the Gene Keys, and you start with your life's work Gene Key. And they kind of organize them into a shadow, a gift, and a city, or like a superpower, if you want to think of it that way. Siddhi, it's a Sanskrit word. And my city, my superpower, my life's work, where your sun is in astrology, is a stillness. And I remember just thinking, the highest expression of what I could offer to this crisis unfolding in my city right now is to be still. And just how empowering that was, and impactful for me in that moment, because I was really torn. I was like, do I need to go out there and burn down some buildings? Like, how do I show up right now? I was really lost at that time. And so that was something that was really amazing for me to do. So you start with the activation sequence, activating your genius, your 4 prime gifts. You move into what they call the Venus sequence, which is like relationship patterns and unpacking childhood conditioning, going back to actually like your moment of conception, they say, in what they call the core wound. And then you go into the Pearl sequence, which is all about like activism and prosperity and like and what you're here to bring to the world. And if you think about it, like this makes the sequencing makes a lot of sense here, right? Because like you're not really ready to face your demons if you're not like really kind of grounded in what you're good at and what you know like you're supposed to be doing in this life. And like you really shouldn't be making that many prescriptive statements about the world if you haven't really explored yourself. And so like this idea of like if you're trying to be an activist and you haven't really done your own work, it's very similar to like not having your why, right? Because you're just like chasing after the outrage of the moment, you know what I'm saying? And so what am I supposed to be mad about right now? Oh my gosh, yeah, that's the thing. When you're really grounded in that, you know what you're about. And that that is absolutely priceless to me. So that's the work of the Gene Keys. Hopefully I did a decent job of explaining it, Mark. Mark is one of the major influences on the Gene Keys, and yeah, he was a part of that retreat that helped me learn things about myself there. So he's actually organizing it, so that was really useful. And then yeah, from the Gene Keys, then we work into what I call Sankalpa. And Sankalpa is the process of actually crafting this statement of intention. And the word Sankalpa is a Sanskrit word it's a type of energy. So is anyone familiar with the word Shakti? Shakti. Yeah, so Sankalpa is a type of Shakti that we can actually cultivate. It is the pure energy of our intention. And so by being clear on it, we can feed it, we can support it, we can nurture it, we can expand it, and we can speak it into existence. So, and then after that, there's usually an embodied ritual where we'll kind of bring this out, and then there'll be another 3 sessions in there probably where we're really dissecting those stories, right? Those high and low points, really getting into those and like figuring out, okay, what was happening here? Why was it painful? What was painful about it? And it's not like I mean, you'll feel lighter. You'll feel more like yourself. You'll feel more whole, because that's what's happening here. Is you have this shadow that wants to be with you. It wants wholeness. It wants embrace. And we aren't whole if we're not paying attention to the shadow. We are just there's a certain lack there.
So our shadow wants to be welcomed back into our life.
Yes, that's how I work with it.
Interesting.
Yeah, because like no bad parts. Love it, Devin. You got it. Is anyone familiar with any developmental theories like integral theory or spiral dynamics or anything like that here at all? No. Okay. Yeah. So what happens is so let's say something happened when you were 4 and it was a really painful experience. And to make it simple, the self basically fragments in those moments of pain. And there is a part of you that is unconsciously trying to satisfy the needs of a 4-year-old. And so you can imagine how this might wreak havoc in someone's life. And so working with the shadow is basically by acknowledging it, by seeing it, by embracing it, you free up this energy then to develop and to come into wholeness with you, to walk with you.
Yeah, I was actually just having this conversation with actually Anna and my husband tonight about Salwa's got something to say. And then I'll
Open up for some questions.
But like that kind of the world is being asked to do some shadow work right now, like big time. And so by us, and this is something that Marcus Schmika, our founder, he's been doing these very often global meditations, because he says you can solve the conflict outside by solving the conflict inside. And I think that's kind of the same thing with shadow work, right? So
exactly.
So why don't we open it up to some questions? What did you say, Sawa? I was just telling someone this evening. Yep.
I was
Yep,
just
yep,
on the
yeah.
phone with my friend who has had like a total crap storm of a life, like just like had like a normal like suburban, American life, whatever, and just didn't know how to be an adult and just like totally screwed up being an adult. And we actually had a conversation, and like every single time you give like any feedback, he like jumps you, and I'm like, you realize you're responding like a small child. So I'm assuming here that probably when you were a child, you really didn't have a good way to communicate with your mom, and now you're living with her. So like, please don't respond to me that way. And like, maybe you need to think about that. And he sent me a text. I mean, this was literally this afternoon. He sent me a text. He's like, I don't know what you just said to me, but I like burst into tears. I freaking feel so much better. Like I definitely something shifted for me when you said that. So everybody's in that place for sure.
Thanks,
Thanks
Sawa.
for sharing that. Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for Andy? We all need some shadow work appointments. Clear your schedule for shadow work.
Andy, I have just a basic question as far as where can we start if we were just going to start with ourselves right now, with our why? What would you recommend? Some simple steps.
Yeah, great question. To start with your why, I would start to write down a list of your beliefs. What do you believe? And getting back to that question, what do you hold sacred? Are really the questions that I would be inquiring into around this kind of stuff. Just because that'll help. That should make things kind of clear. And then, I have on my website a blog post about shadow work. It's called Shadow Work: Why, How, What, and it lists a couple of techniques on there for doing shadow work. The one that I work with most often is called the 3-2-1 shadow process, and it's I can share the website here.
I asked Kristen, I sent you Andy's link and also a different video that he recommends. We'll share it, Andy. You keep talking.
Okay, cool. And so I think that would be, so the 3-2-1 shadow process is really simple. I have a link to it on my website. And that you can do a lot with that. Honestly, like there's a lot that comes from that. And just starting with like, what are the, like, who triggers you in this world? Like what, and really trying to figure out like what it is about them exactly that triggers you would be the first step in doing shadow work. Because what we're doing is we're owning our emotional response to these things, because like really no one triggers you. You feel triggered by when something happens, right? But no one's actually triggering you. And so like what we're doing here is we're owning our emotional wake, and taking responsibility to it. And you can think of it as response ability. We have the ability to respond. That's what's happening here. We're supporting our ability to respond to life.
And then you sent me a video that I also sent to you, Kristen. I think it was a TEDx video.
Yep.
Oh, she already did it. Thank you.
Yeah, I saw that one
Can you
there.
tell us what that is?
Yeah, so that's that was Simon Sinek's first
Okay.
TED Talk.
Okay,
and
cool. So we all have
yeah,
some
and
homework.
You'll hear him talk about Apple in there. You'll hear him talk about the Wright brothers. Actually, it's really interesting how he talks about the Wright brothers, because there was another guy who was trying to take flight at the same time as the Wright brothers, and he was way better funded, way better qualified, like at all these things. But the Wright brothers, like they were clear on why they were doing it, and they're the ones who took flight first. You know, there's some really interesting dynamics there. That's a essential speech, and I would say anything Simon Sinek does, I would listen to. Like the guy is just with it.
Yes, Trisha, we will post them in the Vibe Tribe.
Mhm.
This is really
Well,
helpful.
yeah, very helpful.
Yeah.
And, there's probably a lot of people that, well, there's some brand new people here, but some of us have been doing things for, we've been with Healy for a while, and maybe some have not taken off as much as others. And I think that this comes in perfect timing, because I think we all could stand to look at our whys and do a little bit of shadow work. So thank you. Does anyone have any last questions?
Yeah, any reflections, anything come up for anybody that they are open to sharing?
Yeah, I have a lot of shadow work to do.
Yeah.
Don't we all?
Well, I just want to
Great job.
share.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go for it, Julie.
No, I was just going to say I have prophetic dreams, and last night I had this dream that I was in this city, no idea where I was, but there was these two guys, and they were like tall and thin, and they kind of,
oh my God.
they
Sorry,
went by
but
me
Andy
on a,
and Mark are tall.
I know, right? Well, so they went by me on bicycles, and I was like, hey, where are they going? And I kind of just kept walking, and then came to this part in the city that had no buildings. And it was like it was trees, but they were trees that had no tops. They were just kind of the roots, but the roots were half coming out of the ground. And the guys were there, the guys that I had just seen, and they were like, we're going to pull these out now. And I immediately, when I woke up, I knew that like those were like deep, like the kind of like the weed roots that need to be pulled out, that are like the shadow. Yeah, so I had no idea that you were going to be talking about shadow tonight, but now I know why I had the dream.
And now I know why. I was on a call with these guys earlier today, and I'll make it short, but I also had a dream where in my stomach there was something that was like protruding out, and this is gross, sorry, but I squeezed it, and like all this crap was coming out. And it's like the same dream you had. It's just a little bit different. That's why we're all so connected. Devin, were you going to say something?
I was just gonna say, good job, Andy. I really liked how you like explained it and broke it down. I took a lot of notes, and I haven't done that in a while. So it was like nice. I'm looking forward to like going back over the notes and like digesting it. And I also just want to say, like, shadow work, like it's a never ending gig, right? So like you start and it gets deeper, darker, tougher, scarier, more intense, and then there's times where it's not, it's no big deal, but it goes in ways where I think like having the skills, especially today, is very fitting, to have a conversation, to talk about that and to reset, and to have like a new perspective on, how to look at that stuff. And I like to add the why in there, because I think like doing personal work, if you forget your why, like if you're not like, if you don't have that direction anymore, it can make everything else so much harder, but then if you have that reason of why you're doing the work, then it's that.
Yeah, that, my whole life I was like, I thought that the amount of money you made meant how valuable you were. And so my whole life I was chasing money, and I never got it. And then I changed, especially during like the pandemic. And when I found out about human design, which is from Devin, and like all this stuff, I started to go in, and I didn't realize I was doing why work. But what I really realized that I wanted was, I wanted community. And so that's when I made that manifestation list. And then all of a sudden the community came, I felt rich, and now the money just happens to show up. It was like this backwards work thing that I did. So it's just really important stuff for anybody who, whether you're here to grow a business, or you're here just for community, or you're here to have better health, or all of the above. I think we need to know the why. So thank you so much, Andy. And we will share your link. And yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you all for perceiving and listening, and being open to it. It's a gift, and I have such an incredible reverence for this work, and just so like, and if you're not sure where to start, like, because it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much, right? I just start with the most recent, and like, because like some people don't have access to some memories, right, that happened early in their lives. Like some of that stuff is just kind of, and so like think of it like you just follow the breadcrumbs, right? Like it's just and kind of trusting that it will unlock in the sequence that it's kind of supposed to, and then there will also just be some unpredictable grace that will kind of bring some of it to the surface as well. So I personally also use psychedelics to support my shadow work. And so if that's something that you do that can be useful, I'm not going to make any recommendations on that because that would be inappropriate. But that's one way of kind of doing it for me.
Can you say which is your favorite?
Which psychedelic? Oh boy. I mean, so mushrooms has been the most useful for me. Doing that. In 2020, I sat with a high dose of mushrooms every new moon, and stuff came up. I'll tell you that. But if you have access to something like 5-MeO DMT, that's about as good as it gets, in my opinion. But access to that one is tricky. So just mushrooms are easy to grow. I shouldn't say they're easy to grow, but like anyone can do it if they try hard. And it's they're really good friends.
Okay.
Yeah,
excellent.
So
you heard it here first. Mushrooms are good friends.
They've been good friends for me.
Reverence.
Awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's the big thing with that. I'm just kind of bringing intention to it, right? And that's all you're really trying to do here is like bring your intention into this, right? And really like the why is like the pure light of your intention. It is the sacred. And that's really special.
Awesome.
I think I'll leave it there.
Well,
yeah, thanks so much. Oh,
Anna's got something.
I just have one quick question, just out of curiosity. When you're doing release work or working with the shadow, have you used Healy? And if so,
great question.
You like to learn?
Great question.
Yeah, that is a really good question, actually. Have I used Healy?
Sorry. You go.
When I've been working with psychedelics, I have used Healy. I tend towards being in the gold cycle, because my goal with these things is just to be present with them when they come up, and to really like give myself to the experience. And like a being to me is really amazing at just like kind of bringing you into the present, and like really engaging with it. Being very relaxed is really useful too. Like really relaxing the body, calming the nervous system is a really big one. So I'd say balanced nerves is another good one there. But yeah, those would be the ones that I would say would be the most beneficial, because like think about like if your nervous system is dysregulated and you're just going to feel unsafe in your body, and you're not going to really be able to work with what comes up in a real way. You're going to react emotionally more often than not.
I actually haven't run this program in a very long time, but I scanned myself and it actually came up, which is go to the roots in the deep cycle program, which is not everyone has access to that, but I'm wondering what my dreams are going to consist of tonight. I'll let you all know tomorrow.
And just know, like, when you start doing shadow work, like stuff will be coming to in your dreams, like, because you're opening, you're taking the lid off of the unconscious, and you're letting things out. And so like, don't be surprised if you have more vivid dreams. But man, the empowerment that comes from it, I am blown away at every time I do shadow work with somebody. They look like a completely different person after that session, and it's usually like, oh, I didn't know I needed that kind of like a thing, and that's one of the reasons I do what I do. And I will say too, like the shadow work sessions go as long as they have to, right? I'm not a therapist who's watching their clock. I'm like, we're going to be here until we get this done today. So
that's awesome to know. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, I will book you next week for 4.5 hours.
Yeah, I got you on Tuesday. We'll start at 8. We'll end at 8.
I might need 2 days. Is that okay?
That's amazing.
Well, guys, I wanted to invite anyone on this call. We usually jump on at 9 to go over the 88-day program that we've been doing, Ascension or Quantum Leap program. And I just want to invite, because it's going to be a session today about celebration and recognition and just what we have, and it not necessarily just Healy, but like I know some people have, come across some like huge milestones in their life. And so if anybody wants to hang on, especially any new people, please stay on, and we will have a really juicy chat about all of our accomplishments. Trisha, did you have something else you want to say?
Sorry, I was chewing an ice cube.
All good.
I was going to ask Andy. So I've done work with like, a fire walk, like throughout a weekend. You start on Friday and you don't leave until like really late on Saturday night. And it's really empowering and you feel really amazing. And then I don't feel like I really let it go. So how is this different?
Yeah. So that kind of thing, I would consider that something like almost like a peak experience, right? Where it's like, oh, this like kind of big opening kind of things that I would compare to something like psychedelics in some ways, right? Where you're like, oh man, like I just saw things more clearly for the first time, right? And in my experience, those kinds of things, if we don't have a framework to make sense of them and to work with them and to integrate them, it's really easy for that impact to kind of dwindle as time goes on.
Yeah.
And so like a system, and even just doing, I mean, like I have in my blog the 3-2-1 shadow process around that stuff, like that in and of itself is hugely impactful. I mean, I've done a shadow work retreat where a woman came, and this was on a Sunday morning, 3 hours. By the end of that retreat, she had forgiven her sexual abuser.
Wow, that's impressive.
I mean, and she's like, she was just like, I don't know what to say right now. This was not in my plan for today. I wasn't even planning to work with this. You know, like there wasn't even like the shadow that she was going to work with that day. And all of a sudden it was like, what the fuck just happened? And it really helps to release some of these oppositional relationships that we create, you know, and kind of free us from those, which is useful.
So do you do like weekend retreats where people are actually in person with you?
I do what I call mini retreats. I do about 3 hours with about 10 people. I use ceremonial cacao. I don't know if anyone's ever worked with ceremonial cacao before, but big fan. Yeah, I got a bunch of it from Guatemala. My friend imports it directly. It's the best. And we do a little ceremony. I lead a meditation experience, kind of to like just really feel the shadow and like what it's like to be there. And then we kind of circle up at the end. So I don't do like the weekend retreats. I don't personally have the energy to hold that space for 3 days in a row. And understanding that limitation is, I think, really useful for me. I am dipping my toes into leading psychedelic ceremonials, mushroom ceremonies here in the Twin Cities, and so that's about as big as I'm willing to go personally on something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, I mean, the work can be done on Zoom. That's how I work with a lot of my clients. I work in person with some. And so, yeah, if you're interested in learning a little bit more, like I said, I do free consults, just kind of meet, figure some things out. Even if we don't work together, I can maybe provide some resources around some stuff for you. We can kind of go from there. So if you're interested, yeah. Hopefully
I think we all are. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, and I wish I could stay. I'm actually really interested in that, but I keep hearing a crying baby and I don't want to leave my wife there for too long.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all so much. This has been a treat, and it was lovely to meet all of you. And I'm gonna try to make one of these calls again too. It's a good squad you got here. Really good squad.
Thanks, Andy.
We would
It's
love to
amazing.
have you.
Very cool, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it's good to see Pepper again. It's been a long time.
Oh, I know.
Pepper.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Bye,
Bye.
friends. Love you guys.
Everyone
Take
else who
care.
wants to stay on, feel free to stay on.
I'm gonna have to jump, Ash. I've got my young man just woke up and is waiting for breakfast. He's
Bye,
in the
Mark.
kitchen and getting us ready.
You'll have to come on again soon and talk.
Do you know what? That was part of the motivation of the walk this morning, was to reset my body clock so I can be here for your calls and enjoy it. So looking forward to getting to meet more of you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark.
Have a great rest
Bye.
of the call. We'll talk next week.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.